You know, life was easier as a kid, before the weight of the world was on your shoulders. I don't know about you, but my toys were fun. They didn't sit on the shelf in the package. They got played with a lot. My name's Doug, and I miss my toys. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I love the arcade. Growing up, we were always chasing the real arcade experience. We wanted the real thing at home, or as close to it as we could get. Home machines weren't as powerful as custom arcade hardware, but they sure tried. This is the first installment of Intellivision versus the arcade. We're going to begin this comparison with a couple of my favorite classics, Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. I loved these games when I was a kid. I loved the way they looked, and I especially loved the way they sounded. Whenever I saw either of these machines at an arcade, gas station, holodome, or whatever, I had to play them. Even back then, Nintendo's characters had, well, character. Donkey Kong and Jr. had facial expressions and body language, and they looked cool. Mario had the run and jump sounds that were unique and fun, and both games had background music and cool sound effects. The prospect of playing at home was pretty exciting. So, how did the Intellivision stand up to the arcade with these titles? Well, let's take a look at these games side by side. We're watching here the arcade on the left, the Intellivision on the right. You can see the likeness is pretty decent, but there are some key things missing. Most notably here, the arcade side has 6 tiers where Donkey Kong ends up on the left side, and the Intellivision one only has 5 tiers. Where he's over on the right side. So the board is actually smaller. You can see that the levels that they included, the ladders are pretty much in the same place. But for some reason, there's one left out. And I don't know if it just looked, everything was too small, if they couldn't, fit it in or anything. But that's what it is. And also you notice that Mario's girlfriend at the top, she does not cry for help in the Intellivision version. And she is also the same color as the board, which works out okay here because, in the arcade, she's wearing a pink dress. But if we go and look at the next screen, we see that she's changed to a blue dress because she's still the same color as the board. I'm guessing she's just painted in as part of the background. You can see here on the second level that it's shorter again on the Intellivision than it is on the arcade. And Donkey Kong does not do any moving. He's got no time for that. He just stands there and looks at you, intimidating with his hollow black eyes. And sonically, these games are very, very different. Like I said before, one of the things that attracted me the most to these games in the arcade was the sound effects. You can hear Mario's, running and jumping and the background music and everything. And on the Intellivision Donkey Kong here, if we listen to this, there is no background music. And Mario kind of sounds like an old-timey car horn or something while he's walking. It's a strange sound. I'm not sure why it sounds like that. Now, the arcade version of Donkey Kong had 4 different screens. I've shown you 2 of them. I wasn't playing well enough to show you the other 2. But the Intellivision version only had 2 of the screens. Now, I think that the 2 of the screens that they did have were fairly faithfully recreated. But really, the home versions didn't have all those screens. Even the Donkey Kong on the original NES didn't have the 4th screen on it. I think the arcade likeness of this is not too bad. Just for grins, I thought I would include some shots of the Atari 2600 version of Donkey Kong. You can see here, this is the first screen on the Atari 2600, and it actually has the 6 tiers with Donkey Kong over on the left side. He's got nothing to do with the barrels. He doesn't toss them out or anything, and him and the girlfriend are just kind of hanging out on top. And Mario actually looks a lot like Mario there. He's even got the red and the blue and everything, and you can kind of see that he's got a little face there. So I gotta say that looks pretty good. And the barrels kind of look like chocolate chip cookies. Now let's take a look at side-by-side comparisons of Donkey Kong Jr. You can see we've got the arcade version on the left again, the Intellivision version on the right, both in motion. They look pretty, you can tell that that's Donkey Kong Jr. If we look at this screenshot from the Atari 2600 version, I'm not so sure that that's Donkey Kong Jr., but it was. The thing that bothered me the most, I think, was the sound. There's background music, but because of the way they programmed it and probably the lack of polyphony for the Intellivision, the music starts and stops every time you move or do anything else, and then it starts over again. There are plenty of other Intellivision games that have background music and sound effects, and even if the music has to drop out, it continues. They certainly did try to get closer with this to give you more of an arcade experience. And if we look at the second level of the game, you can see that the amount of chains is the same. There are the same amount of locks, the same amount of chains. There's a lot more stuff to kill you on the arcade than there is on the Intellivision. But they don't do a bad job. And sonically, I like the sounds on Donkey Kong Jr. a lot. I think the arcade sounds cool. It gives it a lot of personality. And the Intellivision version just has a hard time keeping up with those sounds. But I'll tell you, I played this game so much when I was a kid because I loved the fact that I could even play this at home, and this is what we had at the time. The arcade version of Donkey Kong Jr. also has 4 screens, while the Intellivision version had 3 screens. So it had more than the Donkey Kong version did, and they do look better, they look closer to the arcade, but it just didn't have all 4 of them. So, how does it match up? I think the arcade likeness of this is pretty decent. The arcade was a treat, but getting to play these hits at home was pretty awesome. Thank you so much for watching this first installment of Intellivision vs. the Arcade. We will be revisiting it again along with many other great toys in the future, so keep watching, subscribe if you haven't already, and tell your friends. I'd like to give a big hello and a thank you to the Intellivisionaries podcast for mentioning us on their show. If you guys are watching, thanks for watching, thanks for the mention, and I hope you're enjoying the show. There's a link to the Intellivisionaries site in the cards to the side or in the description below this video. Thanks so much for joining us on I Miss My Toys. We'll see you the next time.